You're listening to episode 30 of the Master Your Mind, Business, and Life podcast. I can't even begin to explain how excited I am for this episode. Now, when I started my whole route to spirituality, it actually began with numerology. You see, I first noticed numbers above all other things and how they followed me, how I would see them in sequences. And when I began to take the time to immerse myself in learning more about what those numbers meant, I kept ending up at Felicia Bender's site. If you haven't guessed it yet, Felicia Bender, the Practical Numerologist, is today's guest. Before I unleash this magical conversation on you, let's go over the review of the week. This week's review comes from B Nitro, and it reads, Lauren leads you through many different arenas with excitement and passion. Her topics and guests are different, but also add value. Highly recommend this podcast. Well, this review put a huge smile on my face. Thanks, B Nitro. If you'd like your review featured, simply leave one on iTunes, Apple Podcast, or Podbean to be automatically considered. Or if you leave one on a different platform, just screenshot it and message it to me on social media or at hello@laurensmithbiz.com. Okay. Are you ready to dive into a conversation that will enlighten you on the power of numbers? Of course you are. You know what to do. Tune in, turn it up, let's go.
You're listening to Master Your Mind, Business and Life. Conversations with everyday world shifters, truth seekers, and rule breakers. Here's your host, Lauren Smith.
Hey everyone, it's Lauren Smith. Welcome back to another episode. Today's guest is Felicia Bender. Felicia is an author, public speaker, and a passionate evangelist for the power of numbers. Felicia helps you understand the power of numbers in your life and how they can affect your past, present, and future. Felicia, welcome to the show.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I'm so glad to finally hear your voice.
Oh, well, I can't thank you enough for joining me. You have been my go-to numerologist for about 3.5 years now, so I'm going to try and keep my excitement at bay, but just know that I'm having a total fangirl moment right now.
Oh, it's so strange, but thank you.
I know. It's like weird hearing that about yourself sometimes, but
always. So
I love everything that you put out because it's always so spot on. So that's just one of the reasons I wanted to have you on as a guest.
Oh, fantastic.
Well, before we really get into our conversation, I think it's best that we cover the basics for the audience. What exactly is numerology?
And what a fabulous question to start out with, because you can always gauge people when when I meet someone and they'll say, well, what do you do? I'm a numerologist. And boy, that is just the deal breaker right there.
Right.
It's so you're either interested or not, but numerology, obviously those listening more than likely are interested. So, the way I like to really just present it very, briefly is that numerology is an art and science of numbers. The kind that I use comes from Pythagoras. I don't know, Lauren, were you paying attention to math class?
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't great at math, but.
Yeah, me neither. I'm just saying I was not paying attention to math class, but Pythagorean theorem of geometry. So it's the same guy, right? And he was a Greek mathematician, mystic. He did a lot of things with astrology, astronomy. Very interesting. I would have been really interested to have a drink with him.
Yeah.
It would have been an interesting man.
A good time, yeah.
Yeah. In any event, he posits the idea that numbers carry with them not only a quantitative value, like 1 apple, 2 apples, 3 apples, and so on, but that numbers carry with them a vibration and a frequency. And that everything on our planet and us, our physical bodies and our lives included, are basically coded. And it's interesting to think about. It sounds a little cyborgish if I say it that way, and I don't mean it that way. Basically, it's more it's easier for us to kind of wrap our brains around it in our technological world, right? Where we know where everything is digitized, where all of our realities right now are zeros and ones, right? In terms of the digits. But what I like to say about the numbers is that not only do we feel like like your address has a vibe, right? Has an energy to it, that things around us, that wherever the numbers show up, you get that you can plug in the meaning to it and the frequency there. And so we believe in numerology that what I focus on mostly is our personal blueprint, so to speak. We take that from your birthday and from your given name. And so basically through calculations, we can determine basically what you checked in for, what your life's purpose is, how you're going to go about doing that. We look at cycles of time. It's a really wonderful tool, like astrology, like many other of these spiritual tools that we have at our ready. And yet, it's that interesting thing of, it's like when you know Morse code, for instance. Like you can walk into a room and hear this da-da-da-da-da-da, and if you don't know Morse code, it's just static, right? You don't even know anything's going on. And yet if you walk into a room where Morse code is happening, and you know Morse code, you understand the messages being conveyed. And it's kind of the same idea. Right. That the numbers carry with them a code, and it can give you a plethora of information. So that's basically where numerology comes from.
Yeah. Well, what got you started on this journey of numerology? Really got you interested in it?
Well, it's a really, I always say it's a cruel kind of cosmic joke that I actually do this. And I mean that actually very
in like the best way. Yeah.
Because anyone out there who hates math, I just have to say, I hate math more than anything on the planet.
I'm with you. I'm terrible at it.
So what I always like to, say that, so that if you're out there a little skeptical about numbers and you don't like math, have math phobia, it really isn't math. It's the most simple math. It's actually a language, so it's a language. And yet, so it's interesting. The short story there is that I had an experience in my early 30s. My mother passed away. And she was 59. She was quite young. And, it was a real turning point for me. It brought me to my knees. It was something that happened that just ripped my rug out from under me. I was married early. I had children. I was in a marriage that was kind of really, becoming untenable, even though I couldn't admit that at the time. I was getting a PhD. My mother died. And it really was that moment. And anyone out there listening who has come into these tools, right? These sort of metaphysical tools, often it's because of something like this, right? Where something, what we would consider bad or very challenging or difficult happens to us, and we turn to different avenues for explanation or for meaning. And that's exactly what I did at that time. And yet that was not when numerology came in. At that point, I just began reading and experiencing everything I could about energy, about herbs, about healing, about psychic work, intuitive. I got certified to be a pranic healer, which is energy work. And, and then flash forward years later, I still was looking for my thing. Everything was great, and yet there was still something missing for me. I ended up at a bookstore. I don't know. It's kind of really like a scene from a Stephen King novel or something, where one of the books flies out of the shelf. I mean, have you ever had that happen?
Yeah. Like, whoa, how this end up in my hands right now? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And here's my credit card. I'll take it.
So, an omen of sorts, almost.
Yeah. And it was a book that wasn't about numerology, because I would have never picked it up, never at all. It was something else, but it had some numerology, some simple numerology in it. And it really, it clicked for me. I read it, and I was like, this is it. Yeah. Because I'm very practical, pragmatic. I'm, somewhat skeptical on some levels, even though it doesn't seem like it, in terms of what I've done. And yet, it's this beautiful again, it's a science, and yet it's also an art form where it's all about, the interpretation and the translation. And for me, I have a PhD in theater, and I'm just infinitely fascinated with the human emotional landscape. What makes us tick, what drives us, and why does this drive this person and not this person, right? And numerology answers all those questions so implicitly. So I just became, kind of a fanatic about it. I just started, diving in full throttle. So that's how I got there.
Oh, that's so cool. Maybe this is a good leeway into my next question, but I actually started noticing numbers before I really understood what they meant. So like the number 11, I would see it everywhere. Like it would follow me place. Like my address would be 11. I would move on the 11th day. Certain things would happen around 11. So is that common for someone to maybe notice a number? Because that's what led me to numerology. I had a friend who said, oh, number 11, this vibrates that way. I'm like, wait, what are you talking about? So then I started researching, what does 11 mean? So is that kind of common for people to notice a number and grow from there into numerology?
Absolutely. I get that a lot. I get a lot of clients who are like, oh 11 is a very popular one that plagues them. And it's funny though, Lauren, a lot of people come to me like it's almost like they're almost checking themselves into the loony bin. It's like, oh my God, what does this mean? It's following me. It's got to be, and so it does drive people into that. And these messages that we do get in the numbers can be so validating and really so much fun. After we begin to look and see the meanings around them, I will see, of course, now I see them all over the place, and it grounds me. Every time I see 1111, I will stop and I will actually just say thank you. And it's the Make-A-Wish number. It's kind of that open door to where you can connect, yourself with your intentions, all of those things like that. And yet, yes, I've had people, one of the really interesting things is I will work with people and say, for instance, I had a conversation one time with a man, and I did his life path number, and he just shrieked, and he was an 8. And the number before, the double digit number before we reduced it down to the 8 was a 17. He rips open his shirt and shows me a necklace that has the number 17 on it.
Wow.
And he talked about how that has always been his magic number. It was, oftentimes people say my football jersey was my life path number, my apartment number. I mean, it's so fascinating how that does bring people into it. But yes, absolutely. People seeing number patterns, all of that sometimes draws them into numerology so that they can figure out that they're really not crazy after all.
Yeah. I remember the first time I actually noticed a number sequence that I, in my childhood mind, thought was cool was actually my birthday, because it's January 9th, 1988. So when I broke it down into just the digits, 1988, I'm like, that's also my birth year. So I always thought my birthday was really cool. And I've always had that connection with the 9. But 11s, man, I could write a book on how many times 11s have shown up very profoundly in my life. So that's cool.
Well, and it's interesting with you also, you gave me the permission to just run your chart, and you are not number 9 personified.
Yeah. So tell us, what does that actually tell you when you saw all of those 9s in my chart? What did that say to you?
To me, my translation for that is that when I see repeating number, your life path number, your expression number, your your birthday number are all 9s. Mm-hmm. You have a 9 maturity number. You also are going to be experiencing 2 9 pinnacles. These are cycles of time that you get to be in, and that will be when you're 36 onward. You will be in a 9 cycle forever. And so for me, that the message to me is pretty simple, that you really came in here to do this thing, to do nine thing. And it's that, and a nine is a very high spiritual, wise, number. You are that compassionate, loving humanitarian. And the nine is a very intriguing mix of, I find that the nine truly, when I work with people with the nine, it's one of those numbers that is kind of enigmatic because it is in Chaldean numerology, it's a sacred number. They don't even use it in particular calculations. And yet it does contain, it's kind of, you are that wise old soul kind of coming around for coming around the block again. Yeah. And it's very charismatic, very, very creative, and it has all of the potentials and all of the challenges of all the other numbers.
Interesting.
And then the other influences you have are the two. So very loving. So you have, you're pretty solid here. I mean, we could go on forever and ever, but, that you're doing something in this spiritual self-help realm is right on target. And you're very young to be even knowing that at this point.
I've had a psychic tell me that in my mid to late 30s is when my life would really change.
Absolutely.
I would step into a next power, and that everything was happening to me because I've had an odd couple of months in a good way, just a lot of things happen that I didn't know were possible before. And it's just it has really changed my perception.
Yes.
Of a lot of things, more spiritually, but also just inward personal development type thing.
Oh, absolutely. And what I would say, just as an overview for you, Lauren, is that your pinnacle cycles are really interesting to me. And they're so beautifully, aligned with your core numbers, your personality profile. And yet what I'll say is that you from birth to 27 and 27 to 36, you had your first pinnacle cycle, and pinnacle cycles are kind of, I liken them to kind of degree programs that you signed up for an extended period of time. Yeah. It's really, it's the subject matter that you're learning. And you can also look at them as kind of building blocks as to what you're mastering at a certain time, and then you move into the next level. And you can really see the trajectory that your life is taking, and the opportunities there. Right. And for you, you were in a number 1 pinnacle until 27. That's all about leadership, about individuality, kind of really getting, stepping into yourself in that way. Right now, you're in a number 8. And that is all about really getting yourself grounded in the material world. So I feel like these first 36 years are really getting yourself grounded on terra firma, because from 36 onward, you're going to be engaging all of that in the more spiritual realm. So you have to ground yourself and learn about business, learn about money, learn about all of those things now, and integrate those into that higher, not higher purpose, but integrate them into that more spiritual trajectory that you'll be on from 36 onward.
That's so crazy. I would say at 27, I had that aha life-changing moment. So as soon as you said that, I kind of had goosebumps for a second.
Yeah. It's a little weird, isn't it? Yes. It's kind of creepy sometimes.
Yeah, but it's so cool at the same time. It's it makes sense. It's when the stars align. Maybe we should back up a second too.
Yes.
To talk about what a life path number is, because we didn't really go over that. And some people might be like, what
are you talking about? Yeah. And so the life path number is, it's really, you can think about it similarly as your sun sign in astrology, right? So if you're only going to know one number, I would say that it would be this number. It's taken from your birth date. And since you already shared your birth date, let's go ahead and do yours, okay? So we'll do a quick calculation. So if you're listening, get out your pen. And so we take January 9th, 1988 is going to be our example. So January is a 1 because it's the first month. So you put a 1 there, okay, for January. Then you look at the day you were born. You're born on the 9th. You're making it very easy because the 9 is 9. So we're always looking at 1-digit numbers eventually. So just to let people know that. So then we go to 1988. So now we're going to add that together, just like a simple, addition problem. So 1 plus 9 equals 10. 10 plus 8 equals 18. 18 plus 8, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, right? So now we have a double digit number. We're going to keep adding very simply. So 26 would be 2 plus 6 equals 8. So that number is 8. So your 1988, your year of birth, digits down to an 8. Now you're going to add those 3 single digit numbers together. So we'll go 1 plus 9 equals 10. 10 plus 8 equals 18. Okay. So now we continue to digit down. 1 plus 8 equals 9. So you would have a 9 life path number.
And we're always trying to get to that single digit.
Always getting to that single digit. Of course, the deeper you get, more detailed, like with anything, you can have some more nuances with that. And there are different schools of thought around how to do these calculations. So always keep that in mind as well, because someone, for instance, Dan Millman, who I respect greatly, has an amazing book. If you're interested in numerology at all, it's called The Life You Are Born to Live. And he doesn't add the way I just showed you. He adds just adding it all up as one long math problem, right? And then he looks at the double digit number that you get before you digit it down to the 1 and gives you more of those influences. So there's there are just different ways of looking at it. And yet ultimately, on the very simplistic realm, you are a 9 life path, and that's what we would be looking for.
So I have 2 friends who are both. They first got 11. So they would be 2, 11. And then I have another friend who had a 22. Can you tell us what these master numbers mean and why I tell them that they still have to break it down to the single digits. They get all in their head like, oh, master number. And I'm like, well, you have to achieve that first. But can you just break that down a little bit more simple?
Absolutely. I mean, the interesting thing is, to be very honest, I just wrote a book about master numbers 11, 22, and 33 because I was getting so many clients coming in with master numbers. So I'm like, okay, this really needs some more, to really drill it down here and to thin slice it. And so basically the master numbers are the repeating numbers, 11, 22, 33, and it goes onward for that. You can be a 44-8. That's much more rare, but that's coming into play in terms of, a personality profile. But let's gear it back into the 11, 22, 33. These basically indicate, when you see them in your chart, that they're called master numbers because they carry a specific vibratory influence. They're just up the ante. They basically indicate that you come in with a higher spiritual potential, no matter how you might personally define that, and then also some more intense challenges. Okay. Yeah. So these numbers really, for me, when I meet someone with these, they're always going to have this really intense underlying anxiety in life. They're always feeling like they're never enough, not doing it right, not doing enough. They know they're meant for something a little bit more expansive, and yet they can struggle with that. So the interesting thing is that master numbers really are pushing you and prodding you to take the lead, to really master your life on very many realms. And it's not easy, because the master numbers are also in conflict with themselves. And so you get a real mission, like with your friend who is an 11, the 11, you can do a slash and a 2, right? Because and this is the way that I would also say, Lauren, is that some numerologists say that you never reduce a master number.
Oh, okay? Interesting.
Right? So that even when it shows up as in a calculation or something, say that you were born January 11th, that many people would not digit that 11 down to a 2. They would keep it into 11. So again, different schools of thought, right? And yet the master numbers, when you see that, it's good to kind of do an exploration there about that, because like I'll teach workshops and you can always tell, like you're saying, that someone will have a master number and everyone kind of, throws shade over that way. And they're like, they're like, what? You're so super special. I'm like, hey, wait a minute. Why don't you talk to her about how super special it feels? Because it's hard. It's hard. Really hard. Yeah. And there are a lot more challenges and there are a lot more intricacies that go along with the master numbers. And you are being called upon to step up and lead and to master those elements on whatever level.
Yeah. Can you think of any like famous people who have master numbers that maybe our audience can resonate with?
Absolutely. For the 11, we've got Jimmy Kimmel is an 11, Stephen Colbert, Robert Downey Jr., the late Dr. Wayne Dyer, if anyone Wayne. So many other people. And the 22s, we've got 22s are interesting because often it depends on your method of calculation. Sometimes it'll come up as a 13, which is a karmic number. Sometimes it'll come up as a 22, that sort of thing. So again, this is overarchingly, sometimes it shows up this way, sometimes it doesn't. But the Dalai Lama is a 22. And the 22-4 is the master teacher, right? And the master builder in the world. Oprah Winfrey can be a 13 or a 22, depending on how you calculate it. But she also has an 11 birthday. So she has a combination of these in her chart. A lot of 22s. Richard Branson is a 22, all kinds of people. So,
so cool.
Yeah. And talk to them. That help.
Yeah. Well, I think
how easy breezy it is.
Right. I think it's interesting when you start seeing those characteristics of those people and what they do. That's where it really starts. You start connecting dots of how they're similar or how they operate or present themselves. And
absolutely.
That's where it gets interesting.
Yeah, it does get interesting when you can look at, some definitions, right? Some defining qualities of those numbers and see how it fits.
Yes. I keep a running notes tab in my phone because my friends are constantly they're like, what's my number again? I'm like, oh gosh. So I have it for them. It's almost like a trick sometimes. I'm like,
you're hilarious.
I just keep it on my phone, but I also have their astrology signs too, because they're like, I don't remember. So I use them as well. But I think one last question, which this is something on your website that I go to at the beginning of the month, as soon as you release it, and then at the end of the month to kind of recap to see what actually has happened. And that is your monthly forecast. So I am currently in my personal year 4. Will you share with our audience what a personal year number is and how that differs from our life path number?
Absolutely. So the life path number is more, again, like your astrological sun sign. It's your life's, really indicates your life's purpose, what you're doing, what you've come here to learn and to master. The personal year is a cycle of time. And so we believe in numerology that we go through 9-year cycles throughout our lives from birth to death, and that those are called personal year cycles. And so, again, when you know the defining qualities of each of the numbers 1 through 9, you can start to really kind of plug that information in wherever you see it, and it brings you some more depth there. And yet for the personal years, I call it knowing the theme to your party, seriously, because we feel this happening right at the end of the year. Every year, it's kind of that New Year's resolution frenzy. And yet in numerology, it really is a change of energy for you. And you calculate this personal year by taking your month and your day, and then you add it with the current year. So for you, you're January 9th. So that's, 1 plus 9 equals 10. And then the current year is a 3. I'll just do the math quickly for you. So that would be 13. And then 1 plus 3 equals 4. That means that for you, the 4 personal year is a very foundation setting, very hardworking, very goal-oriented year.
Yeah.
So that's your theme, basically. And it's really fun and instructive, I find, to know this, not only for yourself, but for other people who you care about, right, in your world, because you can understand kind of an idea about what they're going through and how to align with that. Because, I'll give you for instance, Lauren, your 4 personal year, again, is all about getting these foundations set up. It's somewhat grueling, a little bit rigorous. It really is demanding. There are other, elements that we could definitely go into that would be more detailed. And yet the issue is that, say, for instance, I have a friend who in her 4 personal year, went off on a 6-month, little, excursion in her VW van with her new boyfriend. Okay. And she came back, and her business, who she had left with her kids and her employees, that some of her employees had been embezzling.
No.
It was almost like in the dirt, right?
Yeah.
She had to come back, pick that up, really reset everything else. And when we were talking, I said, you should have gotten everything really in line in your 4 year, and then done your 6-month excursion with the new guy the next year,
right,
in your 5, because the 5 is about freedom. It's about taking advantage of those foundational things that you've got in place in your 4 year.
Yeah.
So that you can expand into that. So it's a really intriguing thing to look at in terms of just the energy, and you can feel it, right? I mean, can't you feel it?
Oh yeah. Well, it feels odd to me because I am a traveler by nature. I love traveling. And this year there's so many things that I know I have to restructure in life that just planning a family vacation, I'm like, oh, I don't even really want to take a vacation this year because I need to get this in order. And that's just how my brain is thinking. It's not last year. I felt like I would have gone anywhere, dropped anything. I was flying to different states for concerts with friends. It's just like, whatever, let's do it. And this year I'm like, I have things I need to do.
And that's a perfect way of saying it also, Lauren, because last year was your 3 personal year, which was about fun.
Yeah.
It was about tapping into your joy and your optimism, finding what lights you up. It's a year with travel and to kind of loosen the grip a little bit, really concentrate on your creative pursuits, on, tapping into your emotions in a different way, expressing those. Mm-hmm. And then you bring those things into the 4 year and start to foundationalize things, right?
Right.
And yet what I would say also for your 4 year is that you do need to take some breaks because you can burn out. Okay.
Oh, for sure.
Seriously.
For sure. I know that I have to pencil them in. It's just getting my brain to accept the fact that, it's like you have this plan and deadlines. For me, in August, my youngest daughter will be in kindergarten. So it's like that itself is a milestone because been 9 years since I haven't had any children at home all day long, for a full 8-hour time period. So there's these certain things that I'm like, oh, I need to get this lined up because I know right now it can't happen, but it's going to happen once this next part of my life opens up. Mm-hmm. So, but I'm like, oh, I can't take a vacation then. I'm like, no, you need to take a vacation. It's like that inner battle of ego and intuition of what I need to do.
It is that fine balance, right?
Yeah.
And particularly when you're working with the energy of the 4 is the number of health, and it really responds well when you can when you do, work hard, play hard sort of thing, when you really can earmark specific times where you have true relaxation, Yeah.
Well, that's why I love your monthly forecasts too. And sometimes that when I said I read them in the beginning and read them at the end, when I read them at the beginning, it's almost like it prepares me for something that may happen. Mm-hmm. And especially certain time periods. I think that it was either this past month or the month before. It was focused around health. And I had just had so many, I had dentist appointment, doctor's appointment. I was like, oh, I need to do a checkup on this. And I'm like, wow, that just aligned really well. But then I didn't realize it until the end of the month when I went back and kind of looked back on how my month progressed. Because sometimes in that day-to-day moment, you lose sight of it. And then when you recap on it, you're like, dang, she was spot on again.
Well, and the beautiful thing, and again, I always say, I love you brought it up that way, because if you are looking at this every day, you need to get a life. You know what I mean? I mean, if you can't roll out of bed before you look at your numerology or your astrology or something, you got to take a break,
Right.
And because we learn how to feel it, when you're to feel in alignment and trust that, and then to have the validation, I find, and the inspiration around it is really that's my goal for what I do with this, is not to be in, it's certainly not the crystal ball. It's certainly not tell my fortune. And it's certainly not meant to, to demolish anyone. I can't tell you how many people I've had come to me for readings and have had a psychic reading or an intuitive, something, or a numerology reading where it really was horrible for them. Right. I was told I couldn't make money. I was told I was never going to have a good relationship, all of this stuff. And to me, that is that's just wrong. I mean, all of us are here to do our best with what we've, all of us have these opportunities. And so It's really using this as a tool for being our best selves, at any given moment, and to have validation that that we're not alone. You know what I mean? That there's a support system here on the higher levels that really is helping us out.
Oh, I believe it. I believe it in tenfold. And that it is kind of scary when someone comes to you and someone has told them something negative, because that leaves like a lasting impression in your mind. I haven't had that same experience. I've had a warning sign from a guardian angel for a friend, but it was almost in a positive way. Like I was simply supposed to be a messenger of something. But it wasn't like something that was like, oh gosh, like I can't trust this. It was nothing heavy. So I could see how damaging a negative message could be for someone.
Yes. I think there's a difference between a negative, between what you're saying as you're getting you're getting some information for someone and giving them a caution, maybe about a health issue or something like that, is what I was understanding you say. And that could be very beneficial for someone. I mean, you look at someone like the medical medium or someone like that. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he was someone who gave his grant, said, hey, you need to go check yourself for cancer. And luckily she did and was able to, circumvent that. So there, some messages appear negative,
but have a positive force behind them.
Correct. That's a much different thing than saying you will never find love. There's
gosh, yes.
That's just wrong.
It's just like stabbing a Disney movie right in the heart.
Oh, seriously. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, Felicia, will you share with our audience where they can go to learn more about numerology and follow up with you more? I know that we have some inquisitive minds already.
Absolutely. Basically go to FeliciaBender.com. That's my website. That's the portal of all things for me. I'm on Instagram. You can YouTube. I've got a YouTube channel, all of that. But just go to the website and you can explore around there. Like you said, I've got the forecasts. Those are free every month. I love to do those, and it seems that people really respond well to that. Again, there's videos. There's all kinds of articles there. So if you get, numerology curious, a lot of content there for you to explore and see what resonates with you.
Yes, I've been lost in the sauce on your website on more than one occasion. Felicia, I can't thank you enough, not only for joining me today, but for bestowing your knowledge on myself as well as our listeners. I truly loved our conversation.
Thank you so much. Keep doing your good work. It's so important. So thank you.
Thank you. I mean, whoa, how cool is numerology? Be sure to calculate your life path number as well as your life cycle number, and then head over to Felicia's website to better understand what these numbers mean for you and how you can use them to help guide your life. I've listed direct links to Felicia's website and her social channels on this week's episode notes found at mindbizlife.com. Next week, we have a guest who is also internationally known, and we'll be discussing the importance of healthy relationships, masculinity, and what it means to be a quote-unquote good man. I'll see you back here next week. And until then, remember, every level of life is an opportunity to grow. Be well, my friend.